Hola, culés. I'm coming with some bad news. It seems like Ronald Araujo wants to leave Barcelona for some reason. Yep, that's right. I don't really get it. I didn't want to make this video because I thought everything was going to change after the Madrid-Barcelona match, but it seems like that's not the case. It seems like he genuinely still wants to go. So we're going to talk a little bit about why that is, what I'm seeing online, and what I think this could mean for the team going forward, because this isn't good. Rashad was tweeting earlier. He's basically the Barcelona information guy, and Araujo is open to hearing Juventus. He also didn't tell Juventus he doesn't want to. He's going to stay at Barcelona. Before that, he had given encouragement to Juventus. This is after the Madrid-Barcelona game that he would be still interested in joining. Then a few hours later, we saw that Rashad confirmed Inigo Martinez is going to be out for 4 weeks, which should in theory give him Araujo a spot, right? It should give him a place where he will be able to play football. Shouldn't he at least want to stay for a little while or to prove himself? And I think 4 weeks is more than enough time to cement yourself in the first team. With how interesting this project is, I couldn't imagine Araujo leaving. And that's very much the stance I had until a little bit later. Rashad then tweets, Araujo has made the decision. 4 hours ago, he wants to leave Barcelona. I think that's ridiculous. I really think that's ridiculous. And then even his injury won't change its stance. And this is a good source. You know, maybe he's wrong. It's only one journalist reporting on it, so maybe it's different. And then we're seeing stuff about Hansi Flick not trusting Ansu Fati. Ansu Fati is probably going to leave. That's a different story. I think that's okay. I think he should go. I think he needs to get out of Barcelona. I think he's got to start somewhere else, or at least go out on loan. He's not going to play for Barcelona, it seems. But back to Araujo. Ron is so good, or was so good against Madrid. I dropped all the ideas that I had about what could happen if he leaves, because I do think it would be an interesting conversation if we brought in 60, 70 million euros for his departure and signed some cool players. I made a whole video about that on the main channel. I'll link that right at the end of this one so you guys can go see some of the cool signings that we could make. But I don't think we should let him go. I think having that utility in the back line is so important, especially without Inigo Martinez around. And even more importantly, I was just talking to Rabona TV, and we got into a little bit of the high line, and that the high line is less effective now, or it's been less effective in the past maybe 5 games than it was in the beginning of the season, because teams are understanding it's going to happen and changing the way they're going to play and adapting to it. They are going to need ways to play well and defend well against teams that can adapt to that high line, and I think Araujo is that answer. He might not be able to hold the high line as well as Inigo Martinez, which might be a fact, but he is able to save a game in a way a lot of players aren't. And yes, he can give red cards in terrible situations right now. He can make really bad decisions, but I think more often than that, he makes game-saving plays. We were only in that match against PSG because Araujo had saved our butts earlier in the Champions League run last year. So that is what he can add to this team, and at the very least being a depth option, because who knows what form Christensen is going to be in when he comes back soon. And, you know, he's had to be babied back from injury before. We really can't afford that right now, especially without Inigo out, because our only starter is Kubarsi, and he's 17 and he can't play every game. We're not in a good spot at all. Now we have Eric Garcia, who's going to have to stay and probably play center back because we don't have any depth there, especially if Araujo leaves. But realistically, Araujo shouldn't have any power. It's up to the club if they want to let him go, because they're not going to pay his release clause. I'm sure it's like €1 billion or 500 million or something ridiculous like that. So Barcelona has every right to reject everything and make him stay, but then that doesn't create the best situation at the club. You don't necessarily want that from your captain, especially. That's not going to create a great environment. And then the fact that no one was able to convince him to stay really makes me wonder what the hell is going on in his head about why he thinks leaving is such a much better idea than staying here. Maybe it was the reaction from the fans being so against him for so long after the PSG tackle, which I understand. I wasn't happy with him there, and I think sentiment online is very negative towards him. Maybe he's been seeing that a lot, wants to get out of this toxic environment, which I would understand absolutely. But also, the project at Barcelona is so exciting right now, and all the guys want him to stay. We saw clips, shots here of Gavi and Araujo talking, right, asking him to stay. I think Araujo is then asked to stay here by Lewandowski. Lewandowski tells him to stay. They want him to stay, and he goes, hermano, and they kind of play it off. You know, he says brother, and they play it off. Why leave this project with how exciting it is right now, with how decent they are playing? it just doesn't make sense to me at all. And it's upsetting because I think we need him at the very least. Yeah, I like the player. I think he's been good to us. I think he's been important to us. But just losing him, I think, is an incredibly detrimental thing for the remainder of this season. Like, yeah, sure, maybe some of the guys from La Masia come up and are amazing. I doubt it at center back, at least this season. And I don't know if it makes sense to make another signing at center back when Araujo leaves. It just doesn't work in a wonderful way for Barcelona, even if they bring in 70 million euros, which I think is the minimum, and anything less than that is going to be bad for this team. At the very least, because Araujo looks to be worth and being at the level of that player for us this season. And he could be the difference of a long run in the Champions League while remaining competitive in La Liga and maybe dropping out early in the Champions League and then suffering through La Liga. We need to be able to fight in those actually 3 competitions now with the Copa del Rey. We'll see how it goes tomorrow, but all of this stuff going on, we can't let him go. He's so, I'm like dumbfounded. The fact that he wants to leave, it's like upsetting to me. And I'd probably put a lot of the weight to how negative people were about him after the PSG tackle. And yeah, I understand that it was a bad tackle. People are going to get really upset about that. I also, not saying you shouldn't have gotten upset about that, but I'm saying he's probably seeing a lot of that. He feels like the crowd has turned on him, and I think he's been in an interesting situation. You know, maybe when Gundogan made those comments last season, and then Araujo got so mad at him, and it made this whole dynamic in the dressing room. Maybe he hasn't recovered from that, and I could speculate forever about why it is going on. But the fact is, if he does leave, and say he leaves for like 60 million, because it seems like Juve wants to offer him about 50 or want to offer Barcelona 50 million, that's going to get rejected. Say it's like 65. Even that, I'm not that satisfied with. And if it's 65, Barcelona needs to make a signing immediately. Maybe at center back, but definitely in other areas of the pitch, because they need depth. If they're going to lose a player, especially in the back line, where they're probably the most fragile, maybe you could argue the front line, but they're going to have to bring guys in. And I don't know what that maybe is going to look like. Maybe it's swapping Koundé over to center back and getting him more used to that. We've seen some good performances. I know a lot of people don't recognize that, but he has been good at center back. A few times he was good for Sevilla there. He's also been terrible there for us, so who knows who he's going to be for us this season if he ends up playing there. But it's not like we have a perfect solution. It's not like if we got rid of Frankie de Jong tomorrow, we would be perfectly fine, honestly. That if we sold Frankie de Jong for 50 million euros tomorrow, we're fine. We're in a perfectly fine situation where we have so much depth in the middle. Frankie's barely getting minutes, and when he is getting minutes, I think he's only getting minutes because Hansi Flick is trying to revive his career and revive his form, not because we need him to step in and help the team. That can change going forward throughout the season, but we do have enough depth right now to be able to handle that. And losing Frankie wouldn't be that detrimental, but losing Araujo would suck. Guys, it's just not a good move. Even if we get anything under 70 million for him, it's an incredible disappointment. And even if we get 75, I'm not ecstatic about it. The only way I'll be ecstatic about it is if we get over 80, and that's not going to happen, especially from Juve. And apparently, Araujo's even said that he only wants to go to Juve, which is weird to me. It's not like that's that exciting of a project. Maybe Thiago Motta is really exciting to him, but they're in 5th in the Serie A, and they're not really close to the top. They're 13 points off Napoli. They're okay, so they're not in the worst spot in the Champions League. They're going to qualify, but I don't know if I think he would still be able to play because I don't think he's played a Champions League match yet for us. But still, you know what I mean? It's like, it's ridiculous. It doesn't really make much sense unless they're offering a ridiculous contract, but I don't know if they're financially healthy enough to offer him a ridiculous contract. I don't know. I just don't understand it, guys. It's really upsetting. I think we'd have to bring in another center back. I don't think we would. I think it would be great if we did. Even I don't love the Jonathan Tah signing. I think maybe that's part of it. Araujo's not happy about that. I don't think he's a phenomenal defender. I think he's good. Could be a good depth center back, but he's not going to start, especially he wouldn't over Araujo. So I don't know. It's a messy situation. And I tweeted this out earlier, so make sure you go follow me on Twitter, Robbie Lou or Bobbly Lou. You'll see the profile in a second. I tweeted this out earlier, and I think this is a perfect description of where we are all the time as a club, where we're constantly locking in, crashing out, locking in, crashing out, locking. It's just a cycle of disaster for us constantly, man, where we can't be happy. We can't just have nice things and do good things. Even in the most exciting point where we finally won a trophy for the first time in almost 2 years, it feels like we can't even really, really enjoy it because now we're going to lose at Araujo. Who knows what's going to happen in the Copa del Rey tomorrow? I think we need to win tomorrow. I think that would be a big just resurgence. But I'm upset, guys. Let me know what you think. Are you upset? Are you happy to see him go? I know some of you guys are. And what do you think this team's solution is going to be? What's the lineup going to be looking like? But yeah, thanks for watching. And I'll see you in a post game tomorrow about the Real Betis game. Peace.